David Raya had his big moment in an Arsenal shirt in that penalty shootout against Porto, and you know what? It's not just the penalty shootout. He was immense throughout, and I think we've been building up to this moment. You know what? Let me let you know a little secret. I've got a list of notes, which are just like title ideas for videos that I want to do on this channel, and one of them was about David Raya, because go back a month, maybe 2 months, I was really feeling like I was understanding why we decided to upgrade in a position on Aaron Ramsdale in the goalkeeping area that I didn't think needed upgrading in the summer, and I was starting to get it, but I felt like I had to hold it back. I felt like I just had to wait, because there was going to be a moment for David Raya, and it came. Like I said, it wasn't just penalty shootouts. Throughout the 120 minutes, he was cold as ice, he was big for Arsenal, and he demonstrated a calmness and a sureness in his performance that allowed Arsenal to stay steady in what was a really nervy night against Porto, but we found a way. To talk about David Raya and how he's improved Arsenal, unfortunately you've got to pit him up against Aaron Ramsdale. It feels harsh, got a lot of time for Aaron Ramsdale, and like I said, I didn't even think we needed upgrading on him, but what the hell do I know? Because I'm starting to see where David Raya's added something that we didn't get from Aaron Ramsdale in the previous 2 seasons. Feels harsh to pit him up against him, but that is just the nature of the beast. We're going to have to do, and we start with FB Ref percentile rankings. What I love about percentile rankings is it tells you where they rank for certain stats amongst other goalkeepers in the league. And what we've got is Ramsdale's percentile ranking in the Premier League for 5 key areas that I think Raya has certainly improved on compared to Aaron Ramsdale last season. Now you got post-shot XG, which Raya is better at. If you want to know what that is expected goals based on how likely the keeper is to save the shot. Now I am a stats person, but that doesn't mean I love every stat. I think sometimes it's a little overdone, but I feel like I should share that with you, because everyone always says that Aaron Ramsdale's a better shot stopper. Well, Raya seems to be doing well from that statistical perspective. Anyway, let's go to throws attempted, because that's gone up from David Raya. We saw with the Trossard goal against Crystal Palace, his ability to launch it into Jesus into space, and Arsenal catch players on the counter attack, teams on the counter attack, is a big thing that David Raya has added. Crosses stopped, percentage of cross stopped, defensive actions outside the penalty area, and average distance of defensive actions are all up on Aaron Ramsdale's numbers. And I think those are key to what David Raya is doing really well in this team. Now, when I do a breakdown on a player or something I've noticed, I think I said this in a video last week. I will tell you if it's my analysis. I think I did a bit of analysis on Monday Night Football and what Jamie Carragher and Thierry Henry were talking about with Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's defence. If it's not my analysis, I will tell you. In this, it's mostly my analysis, but there's some great stuff from Art DeRoche and The Athletic that I do have to give major credit to, because it really kind of highlights what Mikel Arteta is appreciating about David Raya, what he's adding to this team. Now, in a great article titled "What Did Mikel Arteta Mean When He Said David Raya Prevents the Things We Don't See?" Art DeRoche picked out this great quote from Arteta where he says, "What I like about David is the things he does in goal and the things he prevents that sometimes you don't even see because they don't happen, because he has anticipated them." What does he mean by that? Well, one of the things for me is his cross-collecting, which I know we've touched on plenty of times, but his ability to just pluck a ball out of thin air, just go, right, mine. I think that is so underrated. There was a time where balls would come into the box and a keeper would punch and you're like, great, you've dealt with the pressure. But all that does is actually reset the attack for the other team, because unless you've won that next ball, as it's come out, you're actually still under immense pressure. And David Raya does brilliantly with that. It takes me back to a debate between De Gea and Thibaut Courtois about 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, where both of them were considered the 2 best goalkeepers in the league, and rightly so. But David De Gea had the most unbelievable catalogue of saves and his ability to just be this brick wall in front of goal. But Courtois had this ability to settle things down and command his area, and they were very, very, they were world class, but just in slightly different ways. And I think David Raya plays a position more similarly to a Thibaut Courtois than a David De Gea, where Ramsdale does as well have this catalogue of great kind of moments in terms of shot stopping, which are great, but then you've got to wonder, why have we allowed that shot to come in? And maybe David Raya is preventing these moments a little bit more, and that's exactly what Mikel Arteta is suggesting. So he's killing the moves, and by claiming the ball, he's basically going, no, your attack's dead, I've got it, and now it's time for us to do something. And his distribution is a big part of this as well. I felt in the Porto game that he was finding either channels when the long ball, would come into the ball come into the box, he'd claim it, and then Arsenal then have a springboard to go and try and counter. So he'd either hit that long ball into a Kai Havertz or a Bukayo Saka, or we just take it back a sec, the ball would then go long onto Kai Havertz's head in the attempt to win a second ball and then gain ground in that middle area of the pitch. I think this was really important because we were really struggling to play through Porto, and at times we're going to find that difficulty. So when a team attacks us, you've got to have that ability to go from one end of the pitch to the other. It's not the first time he's done it. If you think this is just by accident, Havertz up front, suddenly we're going long to him, it's not. We've done this before, and it was actually in our first Champions League game against PSV, and we've done it throughout the season, but that's when I really noticed it for the first time. This ball progression through pass and carries is a really interesting graphic from Marcar Stats because it shows you that in that PSV game, David Raya was progressing the ball more than any other player on the pitch. He was getting us right high up the pitch, and if you see from this little screenshot from Tactical Insight, you can see that I've highlighted every successful pass he played onto Kai Havertz's head, and from the different areas of the pitch he was doing it. He kept finding him and getting that ball up the pitch, and it was just, he was recreating his Raya to Ivan Toney link up. I think Jurgen Klopp called him a number 10 from in goal. His ability to get us from one end of the pitch to the other so accurately is a big asset to Arsenal. And like I said, when you're playing against teams that can be really difficult to play through, and against Porto they certainly were, sometimes you need to have that ball over. You've got to have that ability to go long, and David Raya is giving us that. Now, I've talked about claiming crosses and I've talked about distribution. How about its positioning? That's been a big thing as well. I'm going to show you here the average position of David Raya throughout this Premier League season compared to Ramsdale last season as well. Now, at first glance, you go, they're exactly the same. And I go, cool, okay. But if you look at David Raya, a little bit more red marks outside the penalty area in wider areas. But the big one as well is that cluster in the left centre-back area where Gabriel might be. Because what David Raya has been doing to give Arsenal a little bit of an overload in possession as well is stepping into the back four and receiving the ball so that either Saliba can move into a more advanced space, or Gabriel can move a bit wider so that our left back can invert, or the left back can go high and wide so Martinelli can tuck in. All these things are there so that David, they're made to happen because David Raya is stepping into the back line as well. And what you're seeing from his average positions is not just an ability to step in so Arsenal get a little bit of an overload in midfield, but actually this great graphic from The Athletic highlights it, that by having a more natural higher position, Arsenal's back line is higher, and that has been improving with each season for the last 4 years. The average line has gone up from 22 metres to 25 to 28 to now 30 metres this season. Arsenal playing higher up the pitch, and Gary Neville talked about how this is so important for teams because we can be so compact. Good defending is all about being compact, but you can do it from a deeper position, like a real low block they talk about. You can do it from a mid block, which I thought Porto executed brilliantly against Arsenal, or you can do it from high block. I've never really heard that mentioned, but I guess that's what you'd call what Arsenal are doing, playing in a really compact space, high up the pitch, and doing it because David Raya is able to step forward. And what was that set of numbers that we showed you at the very start? That his average distance for defensive actions is in the top 86th percentile, and actually he is in the 80th percentile. He's in the 86th percentile, so top 14%, but he's in the 80th percentile for defensive actions outside the penalty area as well, showing you that Arsenal are benefiting, and he is benefiting from playing higher up the pitch and in this high line for Arsenal. And then all the defensive numbers that we've shown you in previous videos, go check out my video, for example, about Arteta's vision, where I talk about Arsenal's defending. All of that is just proof that David Raya and the connections he's formed with his back four is really benefiting the team from a defensive perspective as well. And that might be what Arteta talks about when he talks about prevention, the things he's preventing. Now, my final thing I want to say on all this is that he spoke to Thierry Henry on CBS after, and this is another thing that I think maybe goes a little bit under the radar, but it's his cool head and his composure. He said to Thierry Henry that you get drained after games, maybe not leg-wise, but mentally you have to be so focused from the first minute till the last. You cannot switch off for 1 second. You see sometimes players, they can switch off for a few minutes because they're not involved, but with keepers, you never know when you'll be involved, so you have to be switched on and focused on the ball. You have to command and try to be loud. One of my tricks is that I don't shut up. When you compare that, really unfortunately, and I hate to kind of throw this back at him, when you compare that to what Aaron Ramsdale said, where he basically, and you can pause the quote here, I don't want to read it all out, but you can pause the quote if you want to read it, but where he basically says that, basically he can't stay focused for a whole 90 minutes, that's why he sings alongs with the fans, or he kind of gives them back, when he gets abuse, he gives it back a little bit, because he kind of needs that moment to switch off so that he can then switch, back on again. That, for me, kind of highlights a little bit of a difference in mentality, that ability, the way David Raya comes out and speaks. And I was comparing Raya, Kivior and Havertz a little bit to 3 other players who have played in those positions at times, for the coldness they have. I've used this word about this Arsenal team a lot more recently. There's a composure, we've got a job to do, and there's a focus. And I don't think that can be underestimated in terms of what those 3 have brought to that position, and David Raya in particular in the goalkeeping area as well. He's been a big player for Arsenal. Huge credit to him. Love what he's doing for this team at the moment. He had his big moment against Porto in the Champions League, not just from the penalty saves, but through the way he just led from the back, just doing his job, and then in the shootout as well, ensuring Arsenal put their place in the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time since 2010. Big up to David Raya. And I just want to say a really big thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, actually hit the links right here to watch more content like this, including my Football First podcast, which drops every Monday to Friday at 6 AM. And I know it's annoying, I am really sorry to have to ask, but if you want to show support to the channel, hitting the like and subscribe buttons help promote the content much more than you could possibly know. Thanks again.